What's going on, gamers? So here's part two of the interview with Shawn Layden and Destin Legari. So what I find interesting is he's interviewing, Shawn now, because a lot of people are saying he was just interviewing Phil Spencer, right? And then you see him interviewing Shawn. As I try to tell people, right, and you shouldn't be assuming too much like Reforge, but let's look into this part two. Shawn Layden is going to appear into a little bit of information about the handheld aspect and just even more aspects. And as we saw in the first video, he definitely did throw some shots at Microsoft and Phil about Game Pass. And I think he's going to throw some more down the line. So let's get ready for this and let's continue. All right, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. Here we go.
So in the handheld space, we got these rumors. You got the PlayStation Portal now. You got Xbox. They're making a partner in handheld. Like that's the headlines of the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're coming full circle, going back to the Vita, do you think it was ahead of its time? Do you think it just like wrong time, wrong place? Like what happened with that handheld? Because it's a cool handheld, but it just didn't quite catch the way it needed it to.
Let me say something. Your biggest mistake with the Vita is not adding triggers. Like, I don't understand why it would be like this motion aspect. Like, it just makes everything worse. The Vita would have been so much better if they would have designed the triggers correctly. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes. Also, like, when you do stuff like that, where handhelds were separate, you need really good video games and design, and Sony just didn't have the in-house for it. And they couldn't lock a whole bunch of games third-party wise. There's like, oh man, you kind of saw like some mistakes being made there with it. And I had the Vita, you know what I mean? But I was like, this thing compared to the 3DS, once again, it's not about graphics. Yeah, not even close to video games.
I guess the British would call it gilding the lily. Vita was amazing, a completely phenomenal piece of hardware. We had the PSP, which was a huge success for the PlayStation business when it came out. PSP saved my bacon when I was having trouble selling PS3s in Japan. I was selling a lot of PSPs. So, as we call it, blended margin, did okay there. But the problem with it is that it didn't have a right thumb.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted, another analog stick.
Mm-hmm.
Give us another analog stick. That's what, as developers, we're craving for, and as gamers, that we're craving for. We'll do this. So came back. Vita was born. Had two sticks. Yay. Had an OLED screen. Okay, that's good. It's a touch screen. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And we have this rear touch mechanism where you can interact with the game from the rear. Okay, it's going to be hard to port your Game Boy game to that environment, or take this game to another handheld environment, but okay. And then we're going to have a proprietary memory card that you have to buy specially for this device. And when everyone had a kitchen drawer full of SD cards already, to introduce that was probably not fitting the market's requirements at the time, so to speak. Mm-hmm. The price point was, it was manageable. But when it came down to the software, I think some of the first generation of software we created, including the studios I'm associated with, I think the tactical mistake or strategic mistake, we were trying to recreate a 10-foot experience in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring the power of the console into the handheld in a robust sort of way. And we did. The problem is I don't think consumers really wanted a console experience in their hand. They wanted an excellent handheld experience in their hand.
There you go.
And some of that scale didn't translate. Doing third-person shooter on the Vita was really tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Aiming was hard, and you couldn't see all the details of the environment, and if you're moving in a bus or even holding it close. It wasn't until later we got some real focused handheld games when we saw a lot of interest around that. I mean, I still use mine just to play Everybody's Golf.
It's a good game.
It's my perfect pick up and play game. But I think there was a mismatch. So for the content end of it, I think there was maybe too much technology in it. We could have gotten rid of a couple of things like the OLED or the back touch and maybe brought the price down for the unit instead. And I think any company, and I say this if this is where Xbox or anyone else is going, no company, with a possible exception for a few years at Nintendo, but I could even argue that one, has been successful trying to maintain a console and a handheld business at the same time. Because most companies won't launch two different marketing departments, two different sales departments to do that. So you have the same marketing budget. You've got now more product hardware to put it against, which means there's more software to put it against. And trade-offs and triage occurs. And
See, he realizes how tough Nintendo's world is. Like, and that's what I was trying to tell people, even like before, to simultaneously launch a console and a handheld, and you're leading both of the devices and not selling your competitors. It's like, wait, man, that's tough. Obviously, not with the GameCube and the 64 did they outsell Sony, but with the handhelds, consistently. But outside of that spectrum, they've always won. With the Wii, the Switch 2 is obviously going to do what it does. And like I said, when it came to the DS, which sold 154 million, that was just too much for Sony. Like you can't do anything about that. With the Wii selling 101, and they won two battles at the same time. It had a 256 million install base in the 360 era. It was absolutely stupid, man. And even though I played the 360 more than I did the Wii, but the Wii still sold the most that generation. And then with the PSP battling the DS sold 154 million and the PSP sold like 70, 35, which is it still sold well. That's why I tell people, like, sometimes your competitor may double your sales, but it doesn't mean you didn't sell well. You know what I mean? Just like the Xbox One still sold well for what it was, like 57, 50. I mean, that was still pretty good. You know what I mean? Though the PS4 sold obviously a ton more, but it's a situation that Sony put themselves in with Nintendo, and to them they would tell you, but the PSP, that was very successful for us. But if you compare it to the DS, which had 154 million compared to their 70, or like even if you look at the Vita, it sold like 13 million, 14 million. The 3DS sold like what, 80 million. You see, Game Boy sold like 118 million. Nobody, like, in a handheld market, nobody never really ever challenged Nintendo. But it doesn't mean you can't be successful in your own way. Like some people will look at the Steam Deck as some sort of success. So I'm like, if you want to compare it as a supplementary device, I understand. But when you start having people, the Steam Deck is replacing the Switch 2, it's like, do you not listen to what you're saying? You're not making any sense whatsoever, not even close. And it has nothing to do with tech.
I think most companies need to realize if you're going to have two hardware platforms, you really need to have two hardware marketing budgets. I mean, distinct and separate, that are focused on just, promoting one of those or the other.
How do you feel PlayStation has done with the Portal then? Because my perspective is that when the Portal launched, I kind of wrote it off. I thought it was too expensive, didn't have the functionality I wanted, but surprisingly, they've added a lot of functionality to the device and made it more enticing. And now you can get them for like $150. Now, I know there's still like the connectivity, you need to have a subscription, and a lot of people add that caveat to it, but it has become more compelling. So how do you feel PlayStation has done, and looking forward to the rumors and what we suspect Microsoft is going to do with launching a partnered handheld, maybe an official handheld later down the line, and still doing next-gen hardware? How do you see those two camps playing out? And I guess we could throw the Switch too, which is just this upgraded Switch in there. How do you feel about the three different strategies?
Well, I think the interesting thing with Nintendo's strategy is that, as far as I can tell, they've never named a new hardware 2.
Yeah.
They've always given them new names. Super Famicom, N64, GameCube, Wii U, what have you. And now we're going from Switch to Switch 2. So I think Nintendo's finally realized there is a lot of brand value in the word Switch.
Yeah.
And let's keep that associated with our handheld. Let's not call it something completely different. So that's good, leaning into the brand power. For the other platforms, I'd say what I just said is that having two pieces of hardware in the market at the same time is tricky to be successful in both. The Portal, I think they did the Rise thing, which was, it was kind of released kind of stealthy. I mean, there was some fanfare around it, but I didn't see a lot of big marketing campaigns against it. It's like, if you know kind of thing. And I think word of mouth was the best accelerant. It typically is for most things anyway, but certainly Portal benefited from that, and good pickup by the press. And people found it a great compliment to being in the house, especially if you have to share a TV with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Microsoft, do you think they're going to be okay?
I think it's a tough road,
Yeah.
You can ask the guys at Neo Geo how that went.
No, they're gonna find out
A lot of
because like it's like Microsoft coming again in a part of the gaming industry that others have been in for quite some time. A handheld is not easy, but if anybody can get away with it, it's gonna be them because they have so much money. And I've told people this before. Like I'm not worried about if Microsoft's gonna succeed or not for the handheld. They're just gonna find out what it's like. Nintendo's been doing it for 30 something years. Think about it. When did the Game Boy come out in the 90s? So if we even started with like 91 or 92, right? We got 2002, 2012, 2022. Then you add 3 years on top of that. It's 33 straight years. Like, when you have that type of end game and you haven't broken apart, nobody's going to beat you. That's why Nintendo is like insanely powerful end game. A little bit of specs on the Switch, ain't even 1 teraflop, but yet it's doing all that. Yeah, it's what's always been there that ain't changed. That unity behind like everything. You're not gonna be able to beat it. And that's the ultimate power of the universe right there. That strong sense of unity and purity together and being able to create for everybody. So they have it. And obviously everybody else wants that. And I'm glad that's not something you can buy. It's something that they've done together for quite some time. And those are the strongest bonds right there. Like that right there, that unbreakable bond that they have. And I'd like to see that a lot more. But you see, when you look at places like, even PlayStation stuff, like Shawn had to leave, you know what I mean? Jim left, Shoot had left. Like it doesn't last, and it's hard to do that. There's always layoffs happening. Like, so you'll notice, like, man, that type of stuff is not easy. It says a lot about the internal unity that they align themselves with over there in the Nintendo headquarters. You look at a lot of other places, man, everybody else left a long time ago. And yeah, a lot of like I said, layoffs and fallouts happen, and it's tough to have that happen.
devices come and go, and you have to know where your sweet spot is. Maybe
Yeah.
now that Microsoft controls a large mobile phone game company, that they can create some first party content exclusive to a handheld device. Maybe if they partner with some of the bigger stores or platforms, they can get some relief that way. Again, with everything, it's your proposition to the consumer is, what itch are you going to scratch with that?
Yeah.
And all I'd say is you're trying to replicate a console experience on a 4.3-inch diagonal screen. I would advise against it.
But Steam Deck kind of has seen somewhat success.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Like bulky, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't fit in your pocket.
No.
So maybe that's the new handhelds. Really aren't handhelds.
Yeah.
They're more like small tennis bag carry thing.
Small PCs that you can put in a carry on.
Yeah, it has to now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer that though. Like I really don't want to go back to those little smaller handhelds. They were cool for their sounds, but I do prefer the bigger handhelds. Like I think that's better. I mean, when you've seen the scale size of the Switch 2 compared to the Switch 1, I mean that thing's gonna be freaking massive. So I'm okay with that.
It used to be a Vio PC that looked just about the size of a Steam Deck, but you open it up like that. So
Yeah. And
you're right.
They had the Neo Geo Pocket, right? Sort of similar design too.
I remember that.
So do you think that the Nintendo Switch will eventually overtake the PS2, or do you think PlayStation's going to keep finding a million more sales every time that gets close to breaking that worldwide record?
All right, so he knows.
Well, they're not being made anymore. There may be some warehouse somewhere in Ulaanbaatar which has a few of them left. I don't know. I think Switch 2 will have a lot to do with that. If that, depending on the price point it comes out at, if it's super competitive to the current market, maybe you get people switching over faster than if there's, when you have two consoles out of the same manufacturer, but the delta is more than $150, then getting people to move is hard. But yeah, well, the record's out there for the breaking. Want to take a shot for the title? Go after PS2. Yes.
PS2 is.
Yeah, it's too bad they kind of already did, and Sony kind of pulled the panic card and added. Like, guys, I don't understand how you out of nowhere add a random 5 million sales. You had 155 million for all those years. And then out of nowhere, you just pull 5 million cells as Jim Ryan leaves out. I'm not buying it. You can't just make up 5 million cells, and it's insane that they're getting away with it. When they clearly lost, because the Switch already outsold them in the US and in Japan, just not in Europe. And I just find it weird that they add those 5 million cells. Like it's just strange. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm just not buying it. It's what I call being a loser.
One of the best consoles ever made. It's definitely one of my favorites. I mean, GTA 3 alone really, really helped it. And the fact that it had the blue DVD player, at the time was a big deal. And yeah, it was a really special device. What's your favorite PlayStation console ever made?
Well, my heart always belongs to the OG.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
And I think that's probably true. Yeah, PS2 was phenomenal, and PS4 was really good to me. So I like the even numbered platforms, but certainly the OG, the original PlayStation is always going to have my heart.
Yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of my PS2. Final Fantasy 11, getting the hard drive, getting a keyboard and mouse, enticing me to finally build a PC and play Final Fantasy 11 on PC. Soul Calibur 2, I mained on PS2. It was really, really great.
Well, the most insane thing on PS2 was when they brought out the PS2 Slim.
Oh yeah,
I couldn't believe that they could, like, what was that? They reduced the size by 60% or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and
it was nuts.
I think the drive fail rate was addressed with the Slim model too, because there were some issues earlier on where they would die somewhat quick, but if you didn't treat it right, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Make sure it gets enough air.
Yeah. Right. Speaking, that sort of reminds me of PC. A lot of people are having a lot of conversations about the whole PC release strategy. PlayStation's keeping it a year or two for the sort of the first parties. Like I imagine Wolverine isn't going to be coming to PC anytime soon. And if Intergalactic, I imagine, would come to console first. Xbox is day and date. Nintendo's never going to go to PC probably. Do you feel like PlayStation is going to stick to their guns on this strategy, or like 10 years from now, are we going to be all playing apps off of our television? Like, what's the future look like for everybody? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, and it's the right time to ask that question, because I think when we're looking at the so-called, console wars.
They're done.
They're done. It's too bad. I saw you picked up a clip that someone else did with an interview with Peter Moore.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago.
I knew you would like that.
And Peter's talking about that. And, and then we had the rivalry, and there was some, smack talking, that sort of thing. But both PlayStation and Microsoft knew that there was value to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, boxing was at its peak when it was Ali Frazier. You have these two titans, these two sides fighting against each other.
Yeah.
And then later on, it kind of, when Mike Tyson just beat everybody he met, just guys said, okay. So that was important in the console space. And I think what we've got to now, though, is we have two very high-end pieces of equipment, which, if you open it up, they're pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Under the hood. I think they both run the AMD, system on a chip or chipset that goes in there. So that's why it's very, very easy now to do multi-platform releases, where when it was Xbox 360 and PS3,
oh yeah,
you had to recode the game in order to get it run on a multi-platform. So I think that we're getting to a point where the conversations around hardware is about ray tracing and teraflops, which normal Joes understand. The jump from PS1 to PS2, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Seeing the Gran Turismo demo on PS2 just blew my mind. And then from PS2 to PS3, we're getting into real, 1080p, 60 frames per second. We were delivering those standards. Got a Blu-ray player in it.
Yeah.
People saw that for that. PS4 was like the apotheosis of all of that, making it come together in a nicer way and a better architecture, thanks to Mark Cerny, that people could actually code for. PS5 is extension of that, but the technical leaps are starting to plateau, right? It's not like this anymore.
Yeah.
So, what is the future of multi consoles? I'll leave Nintendo's world aside because it's kind of in its own lane.
Yeah.
But I'm old enough. I was there. I wrote the press release in one of my first jobs at Sony. Wrote the press release announcing that to enhance its video offerings, Sony is going to start manufacturing VHS videotape players.
Interesting, Mike. I like how he's giving us a different insight into the way that he sees the way that this kind of plays out when it comes to the console war, the press seeing things as a boss of Sony when he was a boss, and just letting you know what he thinks about it. Like definitely in a deep sense where he's like, man, just like Peter Moore, we like this console war stuff. We liked talking smack, And in our era, this is what we liked pushing. They're not about the ideology that you see now. That's why you don't see them there. They don't like that. Like Shawn Layden is the same way. You could tell like Peter Moore, all of them, they don't like that. They liked supporting the consoles, having exclusives, going at each other's throat, and just keeping that fight going. The stuff that's going now, they understand that obviously, but yeah, they're not with it.
We have our Betamax lineup, but to enhance our lineup, we're going to bring in VHS. 18 months later, the Betamax lineup is gone. There was 8-track compact cassette. There was DVD and HD DVD, and all these other format wars have happened in music and in video, for decades.
Yeah.
And then at the end, one format wins out. There's complicated licensing arrangements which allow other manufacturers to build to that standard.
Mm.
And the idea is we will compete on content, not necessarily the chipset. And I don't know. It seems to me that high-end PC and Microsoft's technology and Sony's technology, they're all racing to a convergence where what is the business model going forward? Is there a consortium that comes together? Do we just license a game format to hardware manufacturers and then compete on, you have the Bang Olufsen range over here and you have your Hitachi range over there, and everything in between. And the format holders just try to make it from a licensing perspective and the higher margin, which are on content.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's interesting that he says that because he's talking about where he thinks the competition is going now, since it's no longer about innovative hardware, which what Phil Spencer said that is going to happen. And, where's it going to be going outside of that? And, we know digital, stream, cloud, pro consumer. Those are key highlights that are very important. And when we talk about digital stream and cloud and also pro consumer, it's like you were saying, it's about high quality content. It's the most important thing in the future. So that's the important part of this interview that I wanted you guys to see. And obviously, we're going to be doing more because there's a lot more to be said. This interview is better than I thought it was going to be. So let me know what you guys think about this. Like, comment, subscribe, leave your comments. Like I said, let me know what you think about what he said about the handheld and about a couple other things. And I'm kind of liking the way these interviews are being done lately because now we have people who are not at PlayStation just kind of like having a bit of a hands off in a sense. Though Shawn and she had like you can still see that PS DNA in them. Like they're still for that PlayStation, that look they have. I'm not. It's a funny look. Like when you look at his face and see it, like that is absolutely pretty golden right there. Shawn Layden is fucking funny, man. The looks he has. He's serious about the PlayStation stuff, and about this interview, he's looking through everything he's saying. It cracks me up, man. I'm just noticing that. I'm pretty sure y'all see it too. The look that he has on his face, it's something else. Dustin's more chill. He still has a pissed off vibe. All right, y'all. Later. Peace out. This is funny. I can't wait to get to part 3 of this.